What's going on, all you wonderful A-Plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again with another live viewer questions video, and I'm going to be basically going over the 25 questions that we unfortunately could not get to last Sunday because unfortunately neither of us could make it to Hero Report that day. Hopefully, once the holidays kind of comes to an end, we'll be able to get back on track, back on schedule, basically business as usual, but just a couple of different things going on, one of us having a not working laptop, and then just holiday stuff altogether, work being kind of crazy, that kind of stuff. But we'll definitely give you plenty of content here and there, depending on when this video comes out. You probably either already have seen our top 5 anticipated movies of the year, or you're about to. I think this will probably come out though after that, so you'll probably see that video first and then this one. I think I'm going to try to aim to get this video up on Wednesday, so we will definitely see how that goes. But in the meantime, all that being said, let's get into these live viewer questions. Let me apologize ahead of time because I am not as energetic with reading as Adam is. I got, it's like kind of weird. It's not like that I'm necessarily dyslexic altogether, but it's just when it comes to reading out loud, it's like my brain doesn't communicate with my mouth correctly. So a lot of times words are going to get mumbled and jumbled, as you're about to see, but I will definitely do my best for all of you wonderful A-plusers out there to try to give you the high quality answers you guys deserve. So starting with question number 1 from Ram Jam. Let me move this mic so I could see the questions better. Cool. Question number 1. Hey Adam, hope you are doing well. I got a couple of questions. I am really sorry that Adam is not the one answering this one. But who knows, maybe he'll be able to comment his thoughts on this question later on. Ooh, especially because it's a Henry Cavill related question, and usually when it comes to like Man of Steel, I feel like that's when Adam and I have very different opinions overall. But let's talk about this. So with the news of Henry Cavill not returning to the role of Superman, where do you see the DCEU going from here? Personally, I think if I was a betting man, I think they might be taking a slightly more MCU approach to the DCU going forward. And I don't mean that they're going to be copying the MCU altogether, but I think because James Gunn has mentioned that they really want, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman to play like a really big role in the DC universe going forward. I would say that means they're probably going to be focusing on the more known characters to start, and then it won't be until we get to like kind of further into the world as it develops, when we're going to be getting the more kind of obscure, lesser known characters, and that's when I think basically they're also going to just be taking their time a lot more, because I think one problem with the DCEU is that we started with a Superman movie, and then before we knew it, we had Superman versus Batman, and then Justice League, and then after Justice League, it was like, oh, now this universe has been fully established. Now all these superheroes suddenly exist here. Especially when you look at a show like Peacemaker, where they reference so many characters that we never even got to see, like Peacemaker kind of referencing the idea that Green Arrow exists in this universe, the fact that Batmeister exists in this universe, all these like really big characters that we never got to see get developed or established. Basically, overall, I think that this new DC universe is going to be built up a lot better. I think we're going to be starting, a lot slower than the DCEU. I think the DCU is going to be like a slower build, but I think it'll just make the payoff that much more satisfying when we finally get there. Like, it's not really going to officially start, I don't think, until 2024, meaning that I wouldn't expect a Justice League movie until like 2029, basically. Like, expect it to be a good slow burn. And then question number 2. With the passing of JDF, do you see Austin St. John being a mouthpiece of the Power Rangers franchise, the way Jason David Frank was? Being mouthpiece? I don't know what you mean by that. I assume you mean like kind of the face of Power Rangers going forward. And I'm not necessarily, honestly. Like, I don't really think Austin St. John is as passionate about the Power Rangers franchise as Jason David Frank was. So I don't see him being as like big with the franchise going forward. But who knows, I don't really know much about Austin St. John as a person, so maybe he is, and maybe he might have a bigger like part at conventions, I guess you could say. Like I don't really see him playing a big role in the franchise going forward, but who knows, maybe he might be a little bit more involved with the franchise going forward. But personally, I don't think so. um Next question is from Marcelino Vasquez. How come we never got an animated Justice League or Avengers cartoon that takes place in the future? I know we get some episodes focusing on that concept, but never a full cartoon that lasts multiple seasons. Batman Beyond does take place in the future, but it primarily focuses on the Batman side. A show focusing on Justice League Beyond or Avengers 2099 would feel nostalgic yet new. I think well, for Justice League, I think the reason we've never really had a future Justice League cartoon series is because we just haven't really had that many Justice League cartoon series altogether. We had Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and depending on who you ask, like if you ask me, for example, I just consider them to be one show altogether. I don't even really consider them to be two separate shows. So, you know, for Justice League, that's why, just because we haven't had enough Justice League shows altogether. For Avengers, though, I don't know. It's weird to me that Disney never really tried anything new when it came to Avengers cartoons. It would be like this weird pattern of, oh, here's a new Avengers cartoon. It's going to last 2 seasons, get canceled, and then we're going to make another Avengers cartoon, which is going to be literally the exact same type of cartoon. We're not going to change anything about it, but it's going to be a whole new continuity and that kind of stuff. I've never really liked any of the Disney Avengers cartoon shows. Maybe they're good, and maybe I just never gave them a fair chance. But yeah, to me, it kind of felt like Disney just kept rehashing the same thing over and over, really trying to capitalize on the MCU, but in the form of cartoon. But it never really worked for me personally. But I guess if anyone watching this video ever actually watched any of the Disney era of Avengers cartoons, let me know if you like them or not, or if I should give them another chance. Next question from Doomsday. How do you think the new Superman movie will be like now that Henry Cavill will no longer be our Man of Steel? Do you feel... this is 2 questions. So for the first question, I think... So for Man of Steel, or for the new Superman movie, I think one of the biggest differences will probably be... the character arcs, because when it comes to Man of Steel, I feel like that movie focuses a lot on Superman, and the side characters are really just there to give Superman an arc, but they themselves don't usually have an arc. But knowing the way that James Gunn likes to write characters, he doesn't usually like to write characters as like props for other characters. He usually loves to give everyone in his movies like a purpose. So I would just imagine it's going to be a Superman movie where everyone has an arc, including Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, Jonathan and Martha Kent. Basically, yeah, the side characters will probably play a much bigger role in this DC universe going forward. And I would also probably expect a little bit more action, because Man of Steel, like, even though it had great action in it, I think that they were very sparing. They used it very sparingly compared to how like other superhero movies will do it. Now, don't get me wrong, when they used the action scene, they really, really used it. Like, I think that final battle between Superman and Zod lasted like 20-25 minutes. It was almost like a Dragon Ball Z fight with how much it kind of dragged. So I would expect, like, fights to be shorter in his movie, but there to be more of them, instead of like just, you know, 2 really stretched out battles. Maybe expect it to be like 3 or 4 smaller fights, until like the very end. I'm sure like it'll have an amazing climax or something, but I don't know. This is all speculation. It's really hard to say, because it's interesting to me that James Gunn is even writing this movie to begin with, because James Gunn seems to be the kind of guy that really likes to work on obscure characters that he can have a lot more creative freedom with. But with Superman, and him knowing how passionate the fan base is for Superman, it's going to be interesting, because I don't see him making any like big changes to the character. I see him wanting to be very faithful to the comic books. So it is going to be interesting, but I think the main difference will be how the characters are presented in the movie in terms of getting an arc, if that makes sense. Chris Crossman. With everything going on with the DC Universe, what do you think of the series Superman and Lois arriving for its 3rd season, and could it be the last as the show progresses? Knowing that it is one of the most successful shows on the CW and HBO Max, maybe the show was altered ahead of time to make the show as if it was the last. it would be such a it'd be such a disservice if the series were to be over after its third season. I'm not sure if the CW and Arrowverse will be impacted by the changes of DC Studios. Fans would be upset if they lost another on-screen Superman after the cancellation of Henry Cavill's future as Superman on the big screen. Yeah, so for the most part, um I think that it is going to be the last season. I think the writers know it's probably going to be the last season. And I don't think it has to do with any of the changes going on with DC as a whole. I think it has everything to do with the changes going on with the CW and the shift in management there. The CW seems to be focusing a lot more on cheaper to produce content. And I think that's kind of the direction they're going to be going with in the future. Just cheaper to produce content that that gets viewers. Like, kind of, it seems like also the audience that they're going for isn't going to be the same. Like, they're not really going for the teen drama type of audience. They're actually kind of going for the more older audience because, let's face it, teenagers don't really watch network television anymore. It's really kind of a thing that more older people do. So I think that's kind of the audience they're going for, and what statistically what they think older audiences want are cheap to produce game shows, so, and reality shows as well, of course. So yeah, because of all that, I really don't expect a third season. I also don't even expect Gotham Knights to have more than one season. But again, I don't think it has anything to do with the change of DC management or the quality of those shows. I think it has everything to do with the management change of the CW itself. Next question comes from Carter Matthews. What do you think of the character Dreamer from the Supergirl series returning on a one-off episode of the Flash's final season? And do you think or will like for Nia Null, aka Dreamer, to give insights on what Team Supergirl has been up to since the finale, and if Kara herself is still crime fighting? Hope Kara at some point returns for a cameo or is teased. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to her coming back. I think I've mentioned this before on our show. If not, here I am mentioning it now. She is like probably my third favorite character on Supergirl, right underneath Supergirl and Martian Manhunter. But yeah, her coming back to the Flash, I think she's going to fit in really well with the cast and crew of the Flash. She really does kind of feel like a Flash character regardless, so it is too bad that she's only going to be back for that one episode. I really hope they utilize her well. And yeah, it would be kind of cool to, hear what basically the Super Friends have been up to ever since the ending of Supergirl. And yeah, I'm sure we're going to get a little bit of a tease of what Kara herself has been up to, but I wouldn't expect a cameo or anything like that, unfortunately. I feel like Melissa Benoist herself is really busy, like not only with her new show coming to HBO Max, but also because she apparently is running her own production company. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be getting her back, which is quite a shame to my opinion. Blossom. Remember when Tokyo 1 suit was black? How'd it be if the love and support of the Rangers and Galactic Council were to break the spell in our story? Tokyo 1. I assume that's from Tokyo Ranger, the train Super Sentai, or the Super Sentai with the train motif. Unfortunately, I never watched that season, so that'll have to be a question for Adam. And speaking of Adam, we have a different Adam, Adam Matthew Perea. Their question is, this may be old news, but I wanted to share this theory anyways. What do you think if Kira Major was adapted into Power Rangers? Imagine if the Kirame stones were, for us were reincarnated versions of the Zeo crystals in the Power Rangers universe. This would be a clever connection to the past seasons. Hasbro has so far been relying solely on the morphing grid since Beast Morphers. They could expand to something like this if they wanted to. If they ended up, lost my place there. Here we go. If they ended up adapting this, it could be a great way to do it. Like they finally explained why the Zeo powers were abandoned for the turbo powers, with a small reference to the Turbo movie, since we saw Cat morph into the Zeo Pink for a split second. And then we have new Rangers using the Zeo Crystal, but more directly, so the crystal is actually seen in the suits. You could even bring in Adam or Billy as a mentor figure and have a sort of new style, like Tommy it was in Dino Thunder. Hasbro has already shown us in Dino Fury that they aren't afraid to keep that they aren't afraid of deep lore building, and the Zeo Crystal would fit the theme for Cure Major. Since the Zeo Crystal would constantly be getting more powerful, Zordon was concerned the increased power would overwhelm the Rangers, so he switched to the turbo powers, storing the Zeo Crystals away until he could refine the power. We obviously had both Tommy and TJ in Forever Red as Zeo 5 and Turbo Red, which would be a cool way to link both Zeo and Turbo even more, since the Cure Major was vehicle themed. Ooh. The last part of that was actually kind of interesting. I actually never thought of that before, but yeah, that is kind of a clever way you could kind of combine Turbo with Zeo and have like a cool link between the two of them. Yeah, as for the crystals being too powerful for the Rangers and that being a concern of Zordon, that would be a really cool explanation for them to go with. They never really gave us an explanation of why they dropped the Zeo powers to begin with, when they were, there was nothing wrong with them and they were clearly getting stronger and stronger every episode. So I think if this was the reason they wanted to go with, it would work. I love it. I love in Dino Fury how they started kind of doing this thing of recontextualizing elements of Power Rangers that didn't really make sense in the past. And I think this would be a great way to keep that going. So, yeah, great theory overall. It's too bad that we're probably not going to be seeing this, pay off, because it seems like the Toei and Power Ranger split has happened. And going forward with Power Rangers, it's going to be like a rebooted show that won't really have any connection to the original universe, but will instead stand on its own. But all that being said, if they wanted to continue this type of story in a comic book form, I would be all for it. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see there. It's a really good way to keep that going. And hell, man, I'd recommend, if you ever have a chance, man, try to pitch that idea to Boom Studios. I'm not sure if this theory has been around before. I know I've definitely heard the theory of like, if they wanted to adapt Cure Major, they could make it a sequel to Power Rangers Zeo. Like, I've definitely heard that before, but definitely the idea of connecting it to Zeo and Turbo, and hence why it's a gem like suit with a vehicle motif, like that I've never heard before, and I think is actually kind of brilliant. Plus, I think the overall explanation of why they had to switch from Zeo to Turbo also works really well. Dino Knights, fight for your rights. Oh, this is a long one. Eric from Time Force. Before you read this, please do your A+ more phenomenal intro for old time's sake. I don't know what Adam's more phenomenal intro was. I think it was just the same thing as his Hero Report intro, if I'm not mistaken. Wasn't it just welcome A pluser? I don't know. Did you see here we go. Did you see Eric as the bad guy, or just a guy who had his reasons? I never saw him as a bad guy. I saw him as a dude who had a lot to prove, and basically had a huge jealousy going on with Wes, because whereas like Eric had to work really hard to get to where he was, a guy like Wes has things handed to him, and then even when he has like a lot handed to him, a lot of things that Eric himself specifically wants, Wes ends up turning it down. So I could see that being like a big thing that really irritates Wes, but kind of like a similar thing to Lex Luthor and Superman, where like Lex Luthor's irritation with Superman is that Superman has all this power that he doesn't necessarily want, and he sees kind of as a burden, whereas like Lex Luthor would kill to have that kind of power. But the big difference obviously between Eric and Lex Luthor is that Eric uses that anger for good, I want to say, in order to not just to challenge himself and better himself as a person, but also better the world in a way, because working from the bottom to the top to become the leader of the Silver Guardians, I think, overall brings a lot more good to the world than if he were to just like have given up and let the Silver Guardians remain to be those kind of greedy military group that only helps people who are rich. But yeah, anyways, while some people did not like Eric in Time Force because he was arrogant and low-key psychopath, he was a really good person underneath. He was actually reliable. He was someone who had nothing handed to him. He spent his life crawling his way out of the gutter while people looked down at him. He saw the ugly side of people and how mean they can really be. This caused him to be a bitter person, as no one ever showed him kindness. The only one who did was Wes, but by that time there was so much negativity in his life that Wes ultimately wasn't enough. Eric becoming a ranger was him earning it. He fought a monster and an army of cyclobots to get his powers. It wasn't like Wes, who got his powers because of the DNA matching and handed Morpher by Jen. Eric had to work for it. Yeah, and it looks like more of the question is just, it's not really a question, it's just kind of you giving your thoughts, and it seems like our thoughts are very similar on Eric's character. So I'm just kind of end it by saying that, yeah, I definitely agree with this overall take on Eric as a character. And I would definitely say if you for those who haven't seen Power Rangers Time Force, if you want kind of a more clear idea on like Eric and just all the characters in general from that season, like as a whole, I definitely recommend watching the penultimate episode of Time Force, as it is a clip show, but it's a clip show that really highlights the character growth for each of the individual characters from Time Force. So I definitely recommend checking that out. The next question is from Gabriel Glacio. Tony Tony Revolori. I'm just going to say Tony. Tony, Flash's backstory in Spider-Man. Not sure if you heard, but Flash Thompson's actor, lost my place there for a minute. Not sure if you heard, but Flash Thompson's actor had reveals of his character's backstory. First off, in Spider-Man No Way Home, Flash got into MIT thanks to being friends with Spider-Man after Peter Parker's secret was revealed. Here is what the actor Tony said. Flash definitely bought his way into the school, and that's how I was playing it in my mind. Here we go. When we were shooting the whole college admission scandal, when we were shooting, the whole college admission scandal was going on as rich parents use bribes to get their kids accepted. So we kind of joked that it was the case for Flash. So I imagine that being the case, and it is a commentary. Then he continued by praising how the three movies handled Flash's arc, mainly focus on the commentary of social economics. But what I thought was also great was the fact that Flash is a person of color, so it didn't need to be a commentary on social economics and race, it just needed to be a commentary on social economics. Yeah, I also know, yeah, I remember that exact thing kind of happening, in hearing about all that. And yeah, it is a very unfair system that we kind of have when it comes to colleges in general, especially in America. Sorry, I don't try to get political on the show. As you guys know, we're not about politics, but yes, it is. I also am kind of a person that does like social commentary in media when it's done right and when it's subtle, and I think like the way they handle in the Spider-Man movies is very well done. It looks like more of the question is just kind of about this and just my overall thoughts. And yeah, I think having a character like Flash, the way he's written in the Spider-Man movies, that's definitely the type of vibe that I get from him. A very different kind of vibe that you would get from Flash in the comic books, where he's kind of like this tough, like not super smart kind of a bully, and hence why, he doesn't even really go to college after high school. He just immediately joins the military because he doesn't really have options after school. So it's a very different take on Flash than the comic books, and it's why I could see why some fans are upset about that take on the character. But yes, I do think that overall that is definitely the vibe I got from Flash's character. And I guess if they wanted to continue that going forward, I could see like in Spider-Man 4 if like somehow his family were to like lose that fortune and maybe he's not able to afford MIT and therefore has to join the military. I could see them taking his character that way, and therefore he's kind of forced to toughen up on his own. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, yeah, I don't really know if I agree though on his overall thoughts of Flash's arc, because I don't really think there was really much of an arc for Flash within these movies. The closest thing is just kind of, it seems like he becomes slightly less of a douchebag, but that's kind of it. So next question is Alexander Rosario. The crossover between Dino Thunder and Ninja Storm. All right. Watched the crossover for the first time in years, and oh my god, the two-part crossover of Dino Thunder and Ninja Storm, and man, it was amazing. The part where all of them morph was just surreal. I can't get over that. I am so stoked and overexcited after watching that two-part crossover. I do. Okay, yeah. So one thing that always did kind of annoy me is whenever they did a crossover episode and it wasn't a two-parter. It's something that I think like the Nickelodeon era of Power Rangers is extremely guilty of, is all the crossovers tend to just be one 20-minute episode, which is really annoying to my opinion. And even before that, there were a few seasons that were kind of guilty of that. I remember the Lost Galaxy and a Lightspeed Rescue team up had that issue. Same with the Time Force Lightspeed Rescue team up. But it was one that I think they kind of fixed over time. But unfortunately, by the time I feel like they perfected the crossovers, that's when they stopped doing them, which was also kind of an annoying thing. Anyways, I am so in love. Oh, sorry. I am so in love in Kira. I think you mean with Kira and Tori. They were hot and fierce. Mad sex appeal. They've got about mad sex appeal they got about them. So excited while I'm writing this right now. Okay, I'm actually wondering if this is even appropriate for me to read. Had some of the best connections of any team up. The Dino Rangers, having just seen the full visual history of Power Rangers, already know who the Ninja Rangers and Lothor are. And then yeah, just more about what they liked about the team up. What do you think when team ups in Power Rangers connect to the past seasons while advancing the current team? And do you wish more crossovers like do you wish we had more crossovers like this in recent team ups? Yes. To answer that question, I do love it when, yeah, basically when it feels like neither one of the teams are one-upping each other and they both kind of feel like they learn from each other. Mostly it feels like it should be the obligation of the older team to teach the newer team going forward. But yeah, I do really like when they learn from each other and both grow as a whole. Like that's what I think Reinforcements from the future did best. I think that, you know, you really got to see how much the Time Force Rangers had grown, and you really get to see them mentoring the Wild Force Rangers, but still learning a little bit as they mentor the Wild Force Rangers as well. I do wish they still had crossovers like these, but unfortunately, like I kind of ranted about earlier, it does seem like Nickelodeon kind of prefers the one-off, one-episode crossover, and that kind of is it, which is, you know, really too bad. I do kind of miss like the bigger character interactions that we don't really seem to get now, and it would have been really nice to have something like that in Dino Fury, because I feel like when it comes to character interactions, I think Dino Fury did it the best out of any of the Nickelodeon seasons. So it would have been really nice to see them cross over with another season to have like actual like interactions again, like bring those back to the crossovers. But you know, it's unfortunate. I didn't mind the Beast Morphers crossover, but I feel like it definitely could have been a lot better. It definitely left a lot to be desired for sure. The next question from Michael Rhymes. All right. Another long one. This has been a topic for a long while, but what do you think of the Ranger community always complaining about filler episodes and lessons of the day episodes? Some of them don't realize that those kind of episodes help slow the main story down. This even happens in Super Sentai. Yet Power Rangers fans don't complain about those same type of episodes in Sentai. I've seen many seasons of Super Sentai, and a lot of their filler episodes are on the same level or even worse than the ones we've gotten in Power Rangers, including the more popular and mature seasons of Power Rangers like Time Force, In Space, Lost Galaxy, Lightspeed, Wild Force, SPD, and RPM had them. Yes, though the fillers in Power Rangers are aimed towards kids. I thought that was part of a bigger sentence. I remember the fans were really upset towards Megaforce for not providing any real development to the characters until Dino Charge brought them back, which was why it was still considered the best season of Power Rangers in the Neo Saban era. Those same fans have complained about filler and Lessons of the Day episodes as of recent, having been arguing with Hasbro and Simon Bennett on wanting Cosmic Fury to be 20 episodes instead of 10. Less episodes means the main story can be the priority. So basically, they're being hypocritical and going against their word of being tired of filler / lesson of the day episodes. Okay. So one thing I'll say is that I personally don't mind filler episodes or Lessons of the Day episodes when they're good and when they're like done right. So for example, I think filler episodes should utilize character development. I think that, if you're not going to move the plot forward, you got to move something forward. And I think filler episodes are the perfect way to move character arcs forward, help characters develop basically. And unfortunately, not every filler episode is going to do this. A lot of filler episodes might just be one-off adventures that have zero effect on the series going forward. And I wouldn't call that I wouldn't say those episodes are bad because they're filler episodes. I'd say they're bad because they're bad episodes. And then same with Lessons of the Day. Again, Lessons of the Day episodes can be good when they're done right. I think the biggest issue that the Neo Saban era has with their Lessons of the Day episodes is that you'll have Power Ranger characters that are supposed to be like at the very least in high school. Sometimes they're college age, but regardless, they're at the age where the lessons need to be more than just words only hurt you if you let them. Stealing is bad. Basically they need to be a little more than that because for the most part it's just kind of cringe when you hear like someone in their 20s being like, oh wow, I've now learned not to judge a book by its cover. I'll never judge someone based on how they look again, or I've now learned to not let words hurt me. It comes off as just really weird. So I kind of wish they just could either give more mature lessons or have a better way of presenting the basic lessons of the day. And like one example of how I think it was done really well was like Jungle Fury. You had like the Power Rangers themselves teaching martial arts to younger kids. So whenever there was like a really basic lesson that needed to be taught, usually it was just one of the kids that the Rangers were teaching. They would be the ones that would need to learn that lesson. And I kind of wish that was the approach that the Neo Saban era of Power Rangers would have taken with some of these. But yeah, when you have like, again, high school students being like, I'm not going to let words hurt me, it's just, not only is that not true, like words really can hurt, it's just, again, kind of cringe when you hear it coming from someone who's not, who's older than 10 pretty much. So, again, though, I wouldn't say they're bad because they're filler episodes or lesson of the day episodes. I'd say they're bad because they're bad episodes, Nicole Robertson. Hey y'all, hope you're doing well. Pick 5 female MCU characters to fight against 5 male MCU characters, plus 2 villains from DC. Don't know what the 2 villains from DC would do with this fight, but you know what? I'm just going to answer the first part of that because I honestly don't know how I would pick 2 villains to go with that. But 5 from both 5 females and 5 males from and the MCU to fight each other. You know what? I'm going to go with the basic route and go with War Machine versus Ironheart. Captain Marvel versus Icarus. Who else? Miss Marvel versus Spider-Man. Who else? What else would be a really good, interesting fight? Ooh, Captain America versus Captain Carter. Um, and then, don't know for that fifth one. Ooh, here we go. Agatha versus Doctor Strange. Okay, I think that those would be my five picks. I don't know. So, like, for the two villains from DC, are you saying like two female villains versus two male villains from DC, or just like two villains to like in general? Because yeah, I'm just gonna do that part of the question because I'm not 100% sure what the other part of it would do with that first part. Next question is from Jackson Peterson. You guys know where I'm going with this. How excited are you for the upcoming Fantastic Four movie starring Miles? Okay, another one of these hypotheticals. If it was like 2016 and we were looking forward to the new upcoming Fantastic Four movie. So, how excited are you for the upcoming Fantastic Four movie starring Miles Teller and Michael B. Jordan? And do you think this will be the best Fantastic Four film ever made and one of those best superhero movies outside of the MCU? Great question. As for my overall thoughts, well, I think this is definitely going to be a very different take on the Fantastic Four, and I really like visually how it looks. It looks like they're definitely going with a intelligent sci-fi approach, and it definitely seems like it's going to be a movie that doesn't have dialogue that was written by a 5-year-old, but rather it'll rely on, science that almost sounds like they know what they're talking about. It may not be the best like realistic science, but it's going to sound realistic, kind of similar to Interstellar in a way. And I'm sure they're not going to rely on really basic dialogue with really, really terrible science that any 5-year-old could disprove. Because, why would you give over $100 million to a director to, direct a film like that, and why would you give it a weird, completely different aesthetic and try to take it seriously if you were going to rely on dialogue worse than anything you've ever seen in a Marvel film before? It wouldn't work. So I think they're going to be very smart about how they write the script to this film, basically. And I really look forward to all those really cool action shots that we get in the trailer. I really look forward to seeing that play out on the big screen. I'm curious, because some movies have to cut a few things, but I'm sure they wouldn't cut anything that would be like important to the story or anything like that, But overall, yeah, I'd say I'm really looking forward to this overall. Miles Teller is a very ambitious choice for Reed Richards, but I'm sure they wouldn't just be taking some random actor and then throwing Reed Richards' name on him. I'm sure there is a really good reason that we will see as to why they chose him to be Reed Richards. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and find out. Oh, man, I love these hypothetical questions. Please keep them coming. These are great. All right, Jericho Gonzalez asks, who was a better villain, Astronema / Carone or Ransik? Ooh, both of these are villains that later kind of turned good later on, but there's a little bit more, so I'll just read this second paragraph. Personally, I choose Astronema. She definitely had a higher body count and was a lot more dangerous, especially with the entire United Alliance of Evil at her command. Even the other villains were a bit afraid of her. It got worse when Dark Spectre reprogrammed her and she had literally no conscience anymore. Excuse me. She had literally no conscience anymore, which was scary when Andros and Zane went to her megaship to try to save her, and she had such pale skin and a blank stare. She even betrayed the highest evil at that point. As for Ransik, he was strong, but his threat was more local. He couldn't have pulled off things on the same level as Astronema. Plus, I'd argue Carone had a better redemption arc since they spent more time focused on it. I absolutely love that she had a lot of screen time when she later became the second Pink Ranger in Lost Galaxy. Okay, well, I think I do like Ransik a little bit better. I think because one of the things I really loved about his character, and I actually kind of talked about this with Vernon Wells himself. Unfortunately, that interview that I did with him, I wasn't able to upload because the sound quality was so terrible. You literally couldn't hear what either of us were saying. But we both kind of agreed. Like, one of the cool things about him was that he went out on his own terms. And I like how he, it wasn't like a simple, oh, you've turned good and now you get to fight alongside the good guys and not pay any consequences. I like that he actually paid his debt to society by turning himself in and allowing himself to be arrested. Something that they do with Astronema in the comic books, but we don't really see happen in the show itself. So, but that said, I'll admit that, yeah, Astronema was kind of mind controlled, so there was a bit more of a gray area there than there was with Ransik, who was completely evil on his own choice, but Astronema had been manipulated since childhood and then reprogrammed when she finally did try to turn around. But there is still the fact that she did a lot of evil deeds, and she did that before she was mind controlled, and within the show hadn't really paid the consequences for it until I guess you could say she made up for it with the good that she did in Lost Galaxy, but the damage is still there. And within the show, we didn't really see her, take any real consequences to those actions the same way she does like in the comic books. So I think both are great. Both are amazing villains and both have a great redemption arc. But I am going to give it to Ransik just by a hair, because to me, I think he was just slightly scarier. And again, he was himself from beginning to end. So him kind of choosing to turn himself in, it was all like on his terms. And that was one of the things I really liked about him as a villain. But really good question. Really, really good question. Jack Daniels asks, what do you think of Peyton Reed, who was originally going to direct the first Fantastic Four film back in 2004 after he pitched a script he felt was great? Anyways, he got to check out the initial artwork for the upcoming MCU Fantastic Four, and he was happy about what the characters could look like when the movie is here. Here are some quotes from the direct site. It's going to be great. And to me, something 20 years long is a long time. I want someone else to do Fantastic Four. Matt is gonna, and I've seen, between you and me, only I've seen initial artwork for Fantastic Four, stuff around the Marvel offices, and it's going to be great. I'm very confused by this quote, especially the whole Matt is gonna blank. Unless it was like Matt's going to do this, Matt's going to do that. So I'm kind of, maybe I just read that quote weird. But the overall question is, does this intrigue your interest for the MCU Fantastic Four film? And what do you think of Peyton Reed, who has been waiting for his shot directing a Fantastic Four film? Do you wish he would have gotten the opportunity, or are you perfectly fine with John Watts being the chosen one? Well, I'm perfectly fine with John Watts being the chosen one. That said, I would have loved to have seen what Peyton Reed's Fantastic Four would have looked like back in 2004. It may have been better. It may have been worse than what we got back then, but who knows? It's hard to say, because I did like the first Ant-Man movie. Not the biggest fan of the second Ant-Man movie, as you guys probably know. But I would say they are definitely well directed, so it would have been interesting to see that director tackle Fantastic Four. But overall, his overall excitement gets me excited, but that's also not to say I wasn't excited before. I definitely was. And yeah, I'm definitely a little more intrigued. I'm surprised Marvel allowed him to check out these characters basically early. So again, I'm glad there's no pettiness between him not getting the role, and I'm really excited to see what they do with the MCU Fantastic Four. I'm gonna end the video here, but I will try to do like a part 2 to these live viewer questions before next Sunday. So probably expect the part 2 to come up on Friday and this video to come up on Wednesday. But yeah, guys, thank you again for your amazing questions. Of course, sorry I couldn't get to all of them, but I will definitely do my best to tackle the rest of them on Friday. But all that being said, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. But of course, guys, above all, just remember to keep it A+, and I will talk to you all later. Goodbye.